I'm Bob the Tomato.
I'm Larry the Cucumber. And today we have a letter from Sarah. So, Sarah's letter is that she has to move to a new place. But she doesn't know if she wants to go because she has all her friends here. And she's scared to go to another place. What do you think about this, Bob?
Well, I think that there's a great story about Ruth and how Ruth eventually has to follow Naomi even though she may or may not want to. And I think that this would be a great story for Sarah to hear.
Alright, our story starts with Naomi and her husband Elimelech and her sons Malone and Kilian in the land of Israel. But there was a famine in the land, so they had to move somewhere else, and that somewhere else was Moab. While in Moab, Naomi's sons married two Moabite women, Orpah, and Ruth. But then disaster struck, and Elimelech died. Later on, more disaster struck, and Kilian and Malone also died. So then Naomi was alone in Moab with Ruth and Orpah without any husband or sons. So she decided to go back to Israel. Before she decided to go back to Israel, Naomi had a chat with Ruth and Orpah. She told them to stay in Moab and to not follow her, so that they could find new husbands. Orpah took the advice and left. And later...
Now don't forget, Larry, she did go and eventually get her own TV show, and it changed her name.
That's true, but that's not important right now, because Ruth decided to stay with Naomi and go back to Israel, and have her people become her people, and her God become her God. And that's confusing.
Ruth and Naomi now being back in Israel, they needed food, and so Ruth went to the fields nearby where where there were some workers in the fields collecting grain. Now they happened to drop a few pieces of grain every once in a while as the workers were going away. So Ruth would then pick up the grain and take it back to Naomi. So then Boaz, seeing Ruth in the gardens, asked the workers who the woman was. And they said she was a Moabite who was widowed, and he's like, nice. So he told the workers to leave extra grain for Ruth to come and pick up. So Naomi tells Ruth to get close to Boaz, and they become quite fond of each other. And Ruth asks Boaz to take her as his wife. Now, Boaz isn't sure how he feels about this because there is a closer relative to Ruth's decease that should marry Ruth. Now, Boaz, of course, asks the closer relative if he wants to marry Ruth. The closer relative doesn't really think that's a good idea because then the closer relative would lose his inheritance. And so he kind of runs away. Now that he's out of the picture, Boaz can then propose to Ruth, and they do get married. And then some things happen. And then Ruth becomes with child and has a baby. They decide to name it Obed. And Obed is the father of Jesse, who is eventually the father of David, who is king over Israel.
So you see, Sarah, even when things don't seem like they're going the right way, God can use them for His good, just if you trust Him.
That's exactly right, Larry. And if anyone else has any other questions for us, please feel free to send us mail at Box 133 at Spring Arbor University. Bye!